You have the big AI revolution in 2030, you lose 60% of jobs, you have 10 difficult years, everybody adjusting, adapting, reskilling, whatever, even more changes by 2040, even more changes by 2050. Like 10 years ago, we were in the most peaceful era in human history. And unfortunately, this era is over.
One of the outstanding questions that I have, and one of the sort of observations I've had, is people like Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI that made ChatGPT, started working on universal basic income products like WorldCoin. And I thought, do you know what? That's curious that the people that are at the very forefront of this AI revolution are now trying to solve the second problem they see coming, which is people not having jobs, essentially. Is that, do you think that's, because, you know, I've spoken a lot this year on stages, and this is one of the questions I always get asked is the implications of AI and jobs as we know it in the workforce. Mm-hmm. Is it realistic to believe that most jobs will disappear as we know them today?
I think many jobs, maybe most jobs will disappear, but new jobs will emerge. You know, most jobs that people do today didn't exist 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Like this.
Like this, like doing a podcast. And there will be new jobs. The really big problem will be how to retrain people. It demands a lot of financial support, also psychological support for people to kind of relearn, retrain, reinvent themselves, and doing it not just once, but repeatedly throughout their career, throughout their lives. The AI revolution will not be a single watershed event. Like you have the big AI revolution in 2030, you lose 60% of jobs, you create lots of new jobs, you have 10 difficult years, everybody adjusting, adapting, reskilling, whatever, and then everything settles down to a new equilibrium. It won't be like that. AI is nowhere near its full potential. So you'll have a lot of changes by 2030, even more changes by 2040, even more changes by 2050. You will have new jobs, but the new jobs too will change and disappear.
What new jobs? So, in a world where intelligence is disrupted, what jobs are left? Because you say you're going to retrain me. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with an AI that's retraining every second.
And I'm not sure. I mean, some of the answers might be counterintuitive. That at least at present, we see that AI is extremely good at automating jobs that only require cognitive skills. But they are not good at jobs that require motor skills and social skills. So if you think about, say, doctors and nurses, so at least those types of doctors who are only doing cognitive work, they read articles, they get your medical results, all kinds of tests and whatever. They diagnose your disease and they decide on a course of treatment. This is purely cognitive work. This is the easiest thing to automate. But if you think about a nurse that has to replace a bandage to a crying child, this is much more difficult to automate.
You don't think that's possible to automate?
I think it is possible, but not now. You need very delicate motor skills and also social skills to do that.
Did you see Elon's video the other day with the Tesla robot?
I see a lot of these videos.
And it's getting the egg and it's cracking the egg and it's going like this.
No, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it will take longer. It's more difficult. Again, there is also the social aspect. If you think about self-driving vehicles, the biggest problem for self-driving vehicles is humans. I mean, not just the human drivers. It's the pedestrians. It's the passengers. How do you deal with a drunken passenger, whatever? So again, it's not impossible, but it's much more difficult. So again, I think that there will be new jobs, at least in the foreseeable future. The problem will be to retrain people. And the biggest problem of all will be on the global level, not on the national level. When I hear people talk about universal basic income, the first question to ask is it universal or national? Is it a system that, let's say, raises taxes on big tech corporations in Silicon Valley in California and uses the money to provide basic services and also retraining courses for people in Ohio and Pennsylvania? Or does it also apply to people in Guatemala and Pakistan? I mean, what happens when it becomes cheaper to produce shirts with robots in California than in Guatemala and in Mexico? Does Sam Altman has a vision of the US government raising taxes in California and sending the money to Guatemala to support the people there? If the answer is no, we are not talking about universal basic income, we are only talking about national basic income in the US, then what happens to the people in Guatemala? That's the biggest question.
And a sub-question to that is about how one should be educating our children and our education institutions as they are today, because with what's to come, makes me wonder what skill would be worth investing, 10, 12 years into a child that I had.
Nobody has any idea. I mean, if you think about specific skills, then this is the first time in history when we have no idea how the job market or how society would look like in 20 years. So we don't know what specific skills people will need. If you think back in history, so it was never possible to predict the future, but at least people knew what kind of skills will be needed in a couple of decades. If you live, I don't know, in England in 1023, 1,000 years ago, you don't know what will happen in 30 years. Maybe the Normans will invade, or the Vikings, or the Scots, or whoever. Maybe there'll be an earthquake. Maybe there'll be a new pandemic. Anything can happen. You can't predict. But you still have a very good idea of how the economy would look like and how human society would look like in the 1050s or the 1060s. You know that most people will still be farmers. You know it's a good idea to teach your kids how to harvest wheat, how to bake bread, how to ride a horse, how to shoot and bow and arrow. These things will still be necessary in 30 years. If you now look 30 years to the future, nobody has any idea what kind of skills will be needed. If you think, for instance, okay, this is the age of AI, computers, I will teach my kids how to code computers. Maybe in 30 years, humans no longer code anything because AI is so much better than us at writing code. So what should we focus on? I would say the only thing we can be certain about is that 30 years from now, the world will be extremely volatile. It will keep changing at an ever rapid pace.
Do you think this is going to increase the amount of conflict? Because I watched a video on your YouTube channel where you said the return of wars.
Yeah. That's one of the dangers that there is, and we see it all over the world now. Like 10 years ago, we were in the most peaceful era in human history. And unfortunately, this era is over. We are now in a new era of wars and potentially of imperialism.